Before we dive in, I want to acknowledge this presentation is a bit different from my usual content. If you've been following my channel, you know I typically focus on AI-assisted development, how to build digital twins of PM departments, how to systematically use AI for documentation, how to avoid the vibe coding trap. But after my last few presentations, several colleagues reached out with an interesting question. This systematic documentation approach is great for business apps, but what about entertainment? What about games, engagement apps, anything where users come to have fun rather than be productive? One PM specifically said, "We tried to gamify our fitness app using standard user stories, and it completely failed. Users said it felt like work with points slapped on top." Another mentioned their meditation app where they added achievements, but users found them stressful rather than motivating. The problem became clear. Our documentation methods are optimized for efficiency and task completion, but entertainment is about emotions and voluntary engagement. So today, we're taking a detour from pure AI implementation to explore how documentation itself must transform when your success metric isn't task completed quickly, but user chose to come back tomorrow. The AI agents and digital twins we build can only be as good as the documentation frameworks they follow. If your framework is wrong, even the best AI will produce the wrong output. Let's start with a fundamental truth that we often ignore. Business applications and entertainment applications are completely different beasts. With business apps, users want to complete their tasks and leave. They're measuring success by how quickly they can get out. With entertainment apps, whether that's games, social platforms, or engagement-driven experiences, players want reasons to stay and return. They measure success by how much they enjoyed their time. Yet we use the same documentation approaches for both. We write user stories about task completion when we should be documenting emotional journeys. We create requirements about features when we should be designing for feelings. We build personas around demographics when we should be understanding play motivations. This fundamental disconnect is why so many attempts at gamification fail spectacularly. Today, I'm going to show you how to transform your documentation to capture what actually matters for engagement. Now you might be thinking, this is interesting for game developers, but I build business applications. Let me show you why this matters for everyone. Entertainment mechanics are eating business applications from the inside out. Duolingo has 500 million users learning languages, traditionally one of the most boring, dropout-prone activities imaginable. They turn vocabulary drills into an addictive experience with streaks, leagues, and that passive-aggressive owl. Strava transformed running, a fundamentally solitary activity, into social competition with 100 million athletes competing for segment records and kudos. Habitica has 2 million users who turned their actual to-do lists into RPG quests where completing real tasks levels up a pixel avatar. Even LinkedIn added streaks and saw a 30% engagement increase. Salesforce built Trailhead, gamifying their training, and now has 3 million learners voluntarily studying enterprise software. The data is clear. Add entertainment mechanics properly, and you can see 3x retention improvement, doubled session length, and 40% higher completion rate. This isn't about making everything a game. It's about understanding that human motivation responds to the same psychological triggers, whether you're building a meditation app or a spreadsheet tool. It's crucial to understand this isn't binary. You don't have to choose between serious business app or silly game. There's a spectrum of engagement. On one end, you have pure utility like Excel, no emotion, just function. Moving along, you find Salesforce with Trailhead. They added achievements and progression to training. Further along is Duolingo, equal parts language learning and game mechanics. And at the far end, pure entertainment like Candy Crush. Where is your application today? More importantly, where could it be tomorrow? You don't need to jump from Excel to Candy Crush. You can move incrementally along this spectrum, adding engagement layer by layer, measuring impact at each step. Let me introduce the first essential concept, the core loop. This is the heartbeat of any engaging experience. It's the smallest complete circuit of action, feedback, reward, and motivation that brings the player back to take action again. This is what players do over and over, sometimes hundreds of times per session. If your core loop isn't satisfying, nothing else matters. In Wordle, the loop is guess word, see colored feedback, adjust strategy, guess again. Simple, clear, endlessly repeatable. In LinkedIn, it's post content, receive likes and comments, gain visibility, feel validated, post more content. In Strava, it's run, see stats, receive kudos, feel pride, run again tomorrow. Notice how each loop creates an emotional outcome that motivates the next cycle. This is fundamentally different from task completion. Tasks end. Loops continue. When you're documenting requirements, every single one should either enhance or protect the core loop. When you're writing user stories, you need to consider how they affect loop continuation. Your player profiles should describe how different types of people experience the loop differently. The second critical concept is engagement curves, the shape of a successful session. Imagine a graph with engagement on the y-axis and time on the x-axis. The curve typically shows a sharp spike in the first 30 seconds. This is the hook, where curiosity peaks. Then from 30 seconds to 2 minutes, you have onboarding where understanding develops. From 2 to 5 minutes, early mastery emerges as players feel competent. From 5 to 15 minutes, if you've done everything right, players enter flow state, that magical zone where challenge perfectly matches skill. And crucially, at the session end, you need an exit hook that creates a reason to return. Get any phase wrong, and you lose the player. Too fast, and it's overwhelming. Too slow, and it's boring. The sweet spot maintains what Csikszentmihalyi calls flow state. Vampire Survivors nails this by having you kill enemies within 5 seconds, an extremely fast hook. Chess.com offers both 30-second bullet chess and 30-day correspondence games. Flexible pacing for different players. Candy Crush perfected 3-minute levels with steadily increasing complexity. Your documentation needs to specify pacing expectations in requirements, map scenarios to different curve positions, and prioritize stories based on which phase of the curve they support. This brings us to flow theory, the psychology of optimal experience. Picture a graph with challenge on the y-axis and skill on the x-axis. If challenge is high but skill is low, you get anxiety and frustration. Players quit. If skill is high but challenge is low, you get boredom. Players quit. But when challenge equals skill, players enter flow state. Time disappears. Self-consciousness fades. The activity becomes autotelic, worth doing for its own sake. Flow state requires progressive difficulty that matches player improvement. Each session should have moments of flow. When players do hit frustration, your recovery mechanics must guide them back to flow, not punish them for failure. Your player profiles need to specify skill levels and challenge tolerance. Requirements must include difficulty scaling mechanics. Scenarios should explicitly show flow state moments and how they're maintained or broken. Here's the critical insight. We control mechanics, we can predict dynamics, but players come back for aesthetics. You can't code emotions directly, but you must design for them. Every requirement should map through all three layers. Don't just document the mechanic. Predict the dynamic and target the aesthetic. Let me walk you through a complete example that bridges business and entertainment perfectly. Battlepass for life. The concept is simple but powerful. Transform personal goal setting into a seasonal progression system where real-life achievements unlock digital reward. Traditional goal apps see 8% completion rates. Users create goals with good intentions, then abandon them within 2 weeks. But what if instead of checking off lose 5 pounds, you were defeating the scale boss? What if instead of read 30 minutes daily, you were on the bookworm champion quest? What if your morning exercise wasn't just exercise, but warrior training that earned XP toward unlocking dragon armor for your avatar? This isn't childish. It's leveraging the same psychological systems that make people play Fortnite until 3 a.m., but directing that engagement toward real self-improvement. The documentation for this system looks completely different from traditional requirements. Let me show you how. Let's start with the project brief transformation. A traditional business brief for a goal app would say, create goal tracking application. Allow users to create and track goals. Send reminder notifications. Generate progress reports. Target 10,000 users in year 1. Functional, clear, boring. Here's the entertainment-focused version. Create Battlepass for life. Core experience vision. Pride plus achievement plus progression. The 30-second hook shows your life as RPG stats. Health, wisdom, strength based on your real activities. The core loop is set goal. Transform to quest, earn XP, unlock rewards, level up. But here's where it gets interesting. The success metrics completely change. Instead of feature delivery, we're targeting even retention of 45% versus the 15% typical for productivity apps. Session length of 5-10 minutes. Not minimized, but optimized for engagement. Goal completion rate of 35% versus the industry standard 8%. Social shares of 1 per major unlock, because pride demands sharing. This isn't just wordsmithing. This is fundamental reorientation of what success looks like. Why does this brief transformation matter so much? Because different success criteria changes everything about how your team works. When success is emotions evoked rather than features shipped, designers think about delight, not just function. When it's sessions enjoyed rather than tasks completed, developers code celebration animations, not just database updates. When it's time well spent rather than time saved, QA tests emotional response, not just bugs. When it's players retained rather than users acquired, PMS measure engagement loops, not just delivery velocity. This alignment cascade touches every role, every decision, every line of code. The brief sets the tone for everything that follows. Now let's look at requirements evolution. A traditional requirement would read, the system shall allow users to create goals with title, description, due date, and category. Functional, testable, soulless. Here's the entertainment version. Players shall experience their goals as epic quests. The mechanic is converting lose 5 pounds into defeat the scale boss. The dynamic that emerges is players checking progress daily to see the boss health bar decreasing, the aesthetic, the feeling, is being the hero of their own meaningful journey. But we don't stop at description. We add success metrics. 70% of players should find quest framing more motivating. 60% should check progress daily, versus 20% with traditional framing. 40% should share boss defeated moments. We specify implementation details, auto-generate quest names with epic language, break goals into 5 milestone battles, scale celebration animations with difficulty. This requirement isn't just about what the system does. It's about what the player feels and how we'll know if we succeeded in creating that feeling. Entertainment apps need completely different requirement categories. Traditional apps have functional, non-functional, i.e. UI, data, security, performance, and integration requirements. Entertainment apps need experience requirements that define emotional outcomes. Engagement mechanics that drive specific behaviors. Progression systems that maintain flow state. Social dynamics that create community. Retention mechanics that bring players back. And critically, monetization ethics that define boundaries. Each category optimizes for different outcomes, where traditional requirements prevent errors. Entertainment requirements prevent frustration. Where traditional requirements ensure data integrity, entertainment requirements ensure emotional integrity. Where traditional requirements focus on security from hackers, entertainment requirements focus on security from exploitation. The shift from user personas to player profiles is dramatic. A traditional persona tells us Sarah Martinez is 32, a product manager in San Francisco who wants to track projects, improve productivity, and advance her career. She's frustrated by too many tools and lack of integration. Useful for business apps, but it tells us nothing about what would make her want to open an app for fun. The player profile for the same person, we'll call her the ambitious achiever, goes much deeper. She has 5 minutes for morning planning, 2 minutes at lunch for check-ins, 10 minutes for evening review. She played World of Warcraft in college, understands progression systems. She's a completionist who needs to collect everything, an achiever type, according to Bartle's taxonomy. Her motivation triggers include visual progress like XP bars filling up, unlockables like exclusive skins and titles, and social proof through leaderboards. Her quit triggers are equally important. She'll abandon apps that judge her for failure, create time pressure, or feel pay to win. For monetization, she'll happily pay $9.99 monthly for premium features, wants exclusive cosmetics, but absolutely no gameplay advantages. This depth isn't excessive, it's essential. You can't create engagement without understanding what engages. Understanding player psychology requires frameworks that business apps typically ignore. Bartle's player types categorize players into 4 groups. Achievers want to complete everything, every badge, every level, 100% completion. Explorers want to discover everything, hidden features, Easter eggs, optimal strategies. Socializers play for human connection, guilds, friends, helping others. Killers want domination, leaderboards, PvP, being recognized as the best. Most players are combinations, but they have primary drivers. Your documentation needs to identify which types you're serving and how. Then there's self-determination theory. 3 fundamental human needs that games satisfy brilliantly. Autonomy. I choose my goals, my path, my play style. Competence. I'm getting better, mastering skills, overcoming challenges. Relatedness. Others see my progress. I'm part of something bigger. Every feature should support at least one of these needs. Every frustration point probably violates one. This isn't academic theory. It's practical design foundation that your documentation must capture. Traditional scenarios document task flows. User opens app, creates goal, sets reminder, receives notification, updates progress, views report. Linear, functional, complete. But entertainment scenarios map emotional journeys with peaks, valleys, and recoveries. Picture an emotional arc graph. It starts with skeptical curiosity as the player opens the app. There's a spike of delight at the first achievement, a small dip of frustration when something isn't clear, followed by recovery when they figure it out. Flow state in the middle, where time disappears. Pride peaks when unlocking something meaningful. The session ends with anticipation, a reason to return. Every scenario needs these micro frustrations and recoveries. Perfect experiences don't exist and wouldn't be engaging if they did. The struggle followed by success creates satisfaction. Your documentation must plan for both. Let me walk you through a detailed first-time player journey to show how this works minute by minute. Minute 0 to 1 is the hook. The player opens the app because they saw a friend's achievement share on social media. They're skeptically curious. Another productivity app, probably garbage. But then, no sign-up required. They tap play as guest and immediately see their life stats as an RPG character sheet. The emotion shifts from skepticism to this is different. Success is measured by getting them to take any action within 30 seconds. Minuta 1 to 2 is the first success moment. They create their first goal. Read 30 minutes daily. The system transforms it into bookworm quest. Journey to wisdom, with epic music and visual effects. Their emotion shifts from curiosity to delight. That's actually cool. They complete their first 30-minute reading session right then, and an XP bar fills up with satisfying sound effect. Level up! They've unlocked their first avatar customization. Minutes 2 to 5 are investment building. They add 2 more goals that become quests. Each completion feels meaningful. They discover that combo completions give bonus XP. They see a leaderboard with friends. They notice a locked dragon pet that requires a 7-day streak. The emotion is shifting from delight to desire. I want that dragon. This is where retention hooks sink in. Every moment is designed with emotional intent, not just functional purpose. The evolution from user stories to player stories adds layers of emotional and psychological depth. A traditional user story. As a user, I want to track my goals so that I can see my progress. Functional, clear, boring, and tells us nothing about motivation or emotion. Here's the player story version. As an ambitious achiever with inconsistent willpower, I want my real achievements to feel as rewarding as game achievements, so that I stay motivated through dopamine, I understand. But we don't stop there. We map the emotional journey. Skepticism transforms to curiosity, then to achievement, to pride, and finally to healthy addiction. The good kind, where you're addicted to self-improvement. We define engagement criteria. 60% set a second goal after completing the first, 40% share achievements publicly, 30% purchase the premium pass. The retention impact is explicit. This creates 90-day seasonal cycles that maintain engagement far longer than traditional goal apps. Each story isn't just about what happens. It's about how it feels and why players come back. Testing entertainment applications requires a completely different approach. Traditional testing asks, can the user create a goal? Can they mark it complete? Does the data save correctly? Entertainment testing asks, does the player feel proud when they complete something? Do they experience flow state? Do they want to continue after failure? You're not just testing functionality, you're testing emotional response. Instead of task completion rate, you measure tutorial completion rate, because that first experience is everything. Instead of minimizing time on task, you optimize session length. Too short, and there's no engagement. Too long, and it becomes a burden. Instead of preventing all errors, you design frustration recovery, because some struggle makes success sweeter. You need to measure rage quit rate, not just error rate. Fun factor rating, not just user satisfaction. One more turn moments, not just session end. You're validating whether the emotional journey you designed actually happens. This might mean watching players' faces, tracking interaction patterns that indicate emotional states, or simply asking how did that make you feel at key moments. The metrics that matter for entertainment apps are completely different. Look at the funnel: acquisition, activation, retention, revenue. For business apps, sign-ups at 100%, first use at 40%, daily use at 10%, subscriptions at 2% whatever. For entertainment apps, downloads at 100%, but then first joy at 80%, returns at 45%, and happy to pay at 5-10%. The key difference is that first joy moment, an emotional metric, not functional. You're not measuring if they used the feature. You're measuring if they enjoyed it. Retention cohort analysis shows the dramatic difference. Day 1, retention of 45% versus 20%, typical. Day 7 of 25% versus 10%, typical. Day 30 of 15% versus 5%, typical. These aren't incremental improvements. They're transformative differences that fundamentally change your business model and user lifetime value. Let me warn you about common pitfalls when adding entertainment mechanics to business apps. The just add points fallacy. Slapping points onto existing features without meaningful progression. A Toto app with meaningless points is still just a Toto app. But a Toto app where tasks become quests with experience toward meaningful unlocks. That's transformation. The dark pattern trap. Using psychological tricks to exploit rather than engage. Punishing players for missing days with broken streaks causes anxiety, not engagement. Good design includes forgiveness mechanics like streak freezes and rest days. You want to motivate, not manipulate. The copy Fortnite mistake, adding battle passes or loot boxes because successful games have them, without understanding why they work or if they fit your audience. Your ambitious professionals aren't Fortnite players. Design for your players' psychology, not someone else's success. Always remember, respect player time, money, and well-being. Engagement should enhance their lives, not exploit their psychology. When you build digital twins, AI agents that replicate human work, they need to understand these entertainment principles. A traditional PM agent evaluates requirements by asking, does this reduce time? Does this save cost? An entertainment PM agent asks completely different questions. Does this break the core loop? Does this enhance flow state? Does this create a retention hook? Does this cause frustration without recovery? The agent needs to understand that good friction exists, challenge that creates satisfaction. It needs to recognize retention risks like sudden difficulty spikes. It needs to flag ethical concerns about monetization. This isn't just different prompts, it's fundamentally different evaluation criteria. I'm simplifying here. Real implementation requires deep understanding of player psychology frameworks, progression mathematics, retention metrics that we don't have time to fully cover today. But the key point is that your AI tools need to think about engagement, not just functionality. Let me show you how all these documents work together for Battlepass for life. The brief establishes our vision. Create epic quests from mundane goals. The requirements specify how goals become quests with XP and unlocks. The player profiles identify ambitious achievers seeking dopamine hits they understand. The scenarios map morning planning, becoming character sheet reviews. The stories ensure real achievement feels like game achievement. Testing measures pride and excitement, not just task completion. All documents align toward one outcome. 35% goal completion rate versus the 8% industry average. Every decision, every feature, every test traces back to this emotional and engagement focus. This isn't separate from good product development. It is good product development when you're building for human motivation. I want to be clear. We've only scratched the surface today. There are deep topics that require further study. Economy balancing, the mathematics of virtual currencies and progression curves. The 8 core aesthetics in detail. Sensation, fantasy, narrative, challenge, fellowship, discovery, expression, submission, monetization models, and their ethical implications. Social dynamics that create virality versus toxicity. There's platform-specific considerations. Mobile patterns differ vastly from PC or console. Live operations. How you maintain engagement through events, seasons, and content cadence. Analytics that predict player behavior and optimize funnels. Documentation transformation is your foundation, but mastery requires understanding the full discipline of game design. The good news is you don't need to master everything before starting. You can begin with basic concepts and deepen your understanding as you see results. Here's your practical implementation roadmap. Week 1. Learn and map. Study your application to identify its potential core loop. What's the repeatable action that could be satisfying? Identify target emotions. Is it fun, mastery, social connection, or something else? Define success metrics. What would good done C7 D30 retention look like for you? Pick one feature to transform as your pilot. Week 2. Transform your documentation. Rewrite the brief with experience vision instead of feature lists. Convert requirements to include MDA mapping, mechanics, dynamics, aesthetics. Create a player profile that goes beyond demographics to motivations and psychology. Map the emotional journey, not just the user flow. Test with real users. Do they feel what you intended? Week 3. Measure and iterate. Track engagement changes. Are sessions longer? Are return rates higher? Identify retention improvements. Where do players stick? Where do they leave? Find and fix frustration points. What makes them quit? Scale what works. Double down on successful mechanics. This is iterative. You won't get it right first try, but each iteration teaches you more about your player's psychology. This costs maybe one sprint of development time. The risk is minimal. The learning is maximum. You're not redesigning your entire application. You're adding an entertainment layer that can grow or shrink based on results. Let me leave you with resources and a challenge. In the description, you'll find 5 comprehensive guideline documents covering everything we discussed today. Project briefs, requirements, player profiles, scenarios, and stories, all transformed for entertainment focus. There's templates you can use immediately, real examples you can learn from, and a reading list for deepening your game design knowledge. Your challenge is simple but powerful. Pick your most boring feature, the one users complain about or ignore. Ask yourself, what emotion should this create? Then document the journey to that emotion, not just the feature functionality. Remember the fundamental shift. Users complete tasks, but players seek experiences. Your documentation should capture the experience, not just the task. The emotion, not just the function. The journey, not just the destination. This isn't about making everything a game. It's about understanding that human motivation and engagement follow predictable patterns that entertainment has mastered. Whether you're building a meditation app, a finance tool, or an enterprise platform, these principles can transform retention, engagement, and ultimately user success. Start small. Test constantly. Respect your users' time and trust. And remember, the best productivity hack might just be making work feel like play.